picking up. Welcome to our attendees. As usual, I will do an official opening and welcoming just now. But in the meantime, please put in the chat where you're from. It's always lovely to know who's joining us and from where, as this is still picking up. Okay. Hang on. Okay. We'll give it another minute or two. So we have Costa Mande from Zimbabwe, Vanessa from Namibia, Prasad from Australia, Bongani, lovely to have you on the call. It's so nice to see your name there. Gareth in South Africa, Prague, Ghana, Zwambi from South Africa, Evelyn, Botswana, Vimala from Malaysia, I think Turkey. Lovely to have our friends from Turkey join us as well. So as our attendees still enter and tell us where they're from, I think I will start right away and welcome everyone. Prof. Molloy, are you there? Will you switch on your camera, please? I see that both of us got, there you are, okay. I might have a bit of a slow connection on my side as well. So attendees, please put in the chat if you don't see or hear us clearly. As you know, it's lovely to see you again. My name is Lindy Greber from the Good Governance Academy, and it's such a pleasure to welcome our attendees again, and in particular, our guest of honor, our speaker today, Prof. Tankisi Molloy. He is the academic director at the Johannesburg Business School, but amongst that, he's many other things. I'd like to personally like to call him my friend as well, and it really is an honor to have you here today, Prof. Molloy, especially on voting day in South Africa. So I invited Prof. Molloy to share more about digital transformation in developing economies. He recently published a book earlier this year on digital transformation in South Africa as part of a bigger developing economy. And there are just so many interesting case studies, examples, and topics on that, but also questions, for example, from my side on how is a digital transformation different in a developing economy or in the global south than the rest of the world, and what benefits could it have for us? Anyways, before I start asking questions, it really is my pleasure to hand over to you, Prof. Molloy. Please share with us your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Greber. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for coming through. I've seen one colleague saying they just came back as an election observer. So I still need to walk there. I've been looking at the lines. They keep on growing, but thank you so much. Those that are in South Africa, thank you for coming through on a great day like this, the election day. But also those that are joining from SADC and the broader Africa, as well as the globe. I've seen people from Egypt, North Africa, Dubai, and all over the world. You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to me. With this presentation, so I just thought, look, let me share with you some examples from an emerging economy perspective, specifically South Africa, but we can then have discussions on what we see out there. So to your question, Doc, so then a vast difference between the developing world and the developing or emerging nations. In emerging nations, you see some pockets of excellence here and there, whereas in emerging world, so you have the internet all over. Most of these technologies emanate from an emerging world. So then there is a vast difference. But I thought, look, let me start my presentation by just talking about what literature and people think digital transformation is. The integration of digital technology in all areas of business. So I just highlighted fundamentally there, changing how organizations operate and deliver value to customers. So you're integrating these digital technologies in all areas of business and then trying to, change the manner in which the organization operates. Of course, that will then cause friction, so naturally, and then so it could work. Sometimes it doesn't work, so you kind of see spectacular failures. But where it works, so it works. It works nicely. So I thought maybe I should just put this slide. So as you fundamentally change, as you fundamentally embed these technologies across the spectrum of your business, so you have to be willing to undergo the cultural change. So there must be a cultural change. You are changing things. So I've been reading literature, the Harvard Business Review, etc., etc. So some have argued basically that to do a proper digital transformation in an organization, you probably would have to let go of, some of the staff members because change is just so difficult. That's not my view. So it's just what we kind of read out there. And, you must be comfortable with the ever-changing world. I mean, digital transformation is embedded on these digital technologies. These digital technologies are forever changing. So you must be comfortable with the changes, with the perpetual challenges that these things will present. You must be comfortable that you're going to experiment often, a lot. You must also be comfortable that you're going to fail. Now, so then, Dr. Khribi, you're running a good governance academy. I do not know if the board that would be comfortable with spectacular failures, but as you run this, you must be comfortable that there could be failure, so that you are going to experiment often, that you want to perpetually challenge the status quo. So these are things that management has to kind of think and consider. So these are questions, for instance, when I thought about the book, and I thought about digital transformation in South Africa also, that leaders ought to kind of think of, are we comfortable with being perpetually in transition, given the nature of these technologies, that they kind of change all the time? So then, are we comfortable to govern the digital adaptive organizations? So then, are organizations comfortable? So these are questions that they must ask. Are they comfortable with disengaging from the past? So then what has worked in the past and then brought you profits, brought you high revenues, etc., are you comfortable? So disengaging, of course, thinking that the future, if you digitally transform, may be brighter. So are you comfortable with embracing uncertainties? Are you comfortable with favoring relative new practices that are still being defined? That's simply because these technologies are newer. So then we're trying to learn these technologies, learn the typical propellers of digital consideration, of digital transformation. What I want you to consider, or what I've considered, so is that when we respond to digital transformation, it's because maybe there is a problem. So we see the problem in our processes and our organization. So we think if we embedded these digital technologies, then we could solve that problem. Or probably so we think there are opportunities. So I'll reflect on these three later on. So in the book, what the authors kind of bucketed what they wrote. So then it's the opportunity. So then do they kind of respond by embedding digital transformation technologies or advanced technologies because they see the opportunity, or then it's the aspirations, they want to continue being better compared to their competitors. This would be the typical propellers of the digital transformation. So I just call them the triangle: problem, aspiration, and opportunity. So if you look at this slide, then talk about the enablers and the drivers of digital transformation, which is often confused. So enablers would be your key components for the identification of problems that transformation technologies must solve. So your people. So then the enablers. so that big data, so then that machine learning, that AI. So these are mechanisms that would aid the organization to solve the identified problem. So then we go deeper. So in this line, on the drivers of digital transformation. So then you know, I was talking about this earlier, and drivers being the people and culture. So if you fail to change the culture, then you're going to have a challenge. So you need this disruptive culture. So is management, is leadership prepared, you know, to embed the disruptive culture, to go with the disruptive culture? So then, if they are, then they need to make sure that the workforce is comfortable with the disruption. It is comfortable with always transitioning, because the technologies change. So that if you think ChatGPT, so last year or year before, okay, so then we used to AI in a different form. Then now we have, you know, the generative AI, so something that can combine these various things and respond. This chatbot respond as if, you know, it has considered, you know, various things. The leadership roles in the digital culture would include defining, implementing, and leveraging a culture in which the analytics, automation, and seamless collaboration go hand in hand. So there is no opportunity for silos. So so you can't say I work in finance, then I'm just finance alone. So then finance is part and parcel of the broader organization. So if you think of people, you've got to invest in upgrading the existing employees. So then you can see by me saying this, I'm not a fan of those that think you've got to, for you to digitally transform, you just have to get rid. In fact, my position is that you are transforming the existing process. Also, then you would need that corporate memory, you would need that knowledge. So you've got to upgrade, invest, and upgrade in existing employee skills through, of course, training sessions and then certifications, etc. I don't know if colleagues have seen this. What we're seeing globally is the rise of the badges, people just getting a certification than getting a 3-year, 4-year, you know, honors, etc., etc. So then you've got to consider these certification and train people. So then you've got to identify the skills gap and then invest in the employees that would kind of fill that skills gap. And then, of course, then leaders would have to cultivate the right mindset, the right skill set, and then that they think will support digital transformation. So then those would just be the drivers. So which I think, you know, it has to do with people and leadership. Then you have enablers. Just for me, which is quite important. I put the cybersecurity up there top. So just because I think as you know, as you move things online, or so, you open up other risks. So you know, we know cyber attacks are increasingly becoming more and more problematic. So then when you move these things online, and when you move into that virtual space, then you know, you opening yourself to that risk. And then you can't then say, okay, then I have the defenses, I'm fine. But you know, we know that the people out there, malicious actors, are always looking for new weaknesses. So you have to consistently upgrade and improve. Hence, when we go back in the earlier slide, so it's just a perpetual disruption. So then if you go this route, you're going perpetual disruption. I like the second one, computing on cloud. So you're computing on cloud because it provides greater flexibility and, and of course the processing power. So then, and you can do it anywhere. But you know, so who knows what is what is there on cloud, and who knows who's computing also then on cloud. So is there a risk that your data could fall into the wrong hands? Then one of other enablers are business solutions, like your customer relationship management, your project management systems, your enterprise resource planning, etc., etc. Then the big one, the big data, the combination of these various, data sets, structured, semi-structured, unstructured, where organization will try to mine, collect, and analyze so that they can have, some insights. Why are they doing that? They're trying to gain some advantages to improve their operational efficiencies, maybe try and provide better customer services. Then I think what we're seeing now is more of the personalized services. So then, so what do these types of customers kind of like? But all in all, so it's just an attempt to gain an advantage over your competitors. Then how do we then crunch this big data, this structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data? Then big data technologies, so AIs, the subsets, the machine learnings, etc., etc. These are tools that have the ability to pull the data then from that massive and integrate data banks. So which for conventional tools that would be kind of difficult to do. Then on this slide, so then just adding some of the enablers. So then you're thinking of these AI or big data technologies being categorized into four. Some doing the data storage, some doing the data mining. So then, and some data analytics, and some data visualization also. So then if you kind of think, let's say maybe data visualization or so you probably have seen your Tableaus for data analytics, etc., etc. So then you've seen your RapidMiners, your Prestos, your Apache, Hadoop, and MongoDBs, etc., etc. These are all technologies that are used in storage, mining, analytics, and visualizations. Then of interest to me, which then if we think about the fifth industrial revolution, or what we've seen from the papers that are coming from Japan, so then that to me talks, it talks to that. So then close interaction between humans and machines. I don't know if you've been to that virtual reality thing or so, then and then having to kind of have a feel. So then that's as close as you can think when you think about the fifth industrial revolution. So at least as the Japanese talk about it, more collaborations between machines and human beings. Of course, this follows the intelligence, the period of machine intelligence, which is the fourth industrial revolution and the third industrial revolution. So then where we saw things moving to the online space. And so I thought, so I should just bring this Dr. Khribi. So I know I have about 10 minutes now before I open for questions. So in 2019, then one of the sitters in the South African context asked us to study in the education, training, and development sector. They asked us to study, the skills that are there, study the technologies that have been used in this sector, so that we can try and then bring some impact in the South African context. So then they put a significant endowment in that chair, so which was chaired by me. So then to capacitate it, then they scoped the study. So as I say down there, the study sought to determine the needs of the ETD sector, given the changes brought by the rapid and advances in technology. And then, so then if you just maybe, I have a link, I'll share these slides. So then this is the report that we kind of came up with. And then the key things that we kind of pick up in the South African context is that in that specific sector, if you extracted universities, So what we had done with the report, we looked at the early development or early childhood development centers, what technologies are there, what skills are there. Then we went to the primary schools, both private and public. Then we went to the high schools, private, public, rural, and urban. Then we went to private higher education institutions. In South Africa, there's what is called private higher education institutions. Then there is, what is called the TVET colleges, technical and vocational colleges. Then there are universities. So we study all those, and then what we find is that digital literacy, except in universities, was just low. That understanding on how technology can be used was just low. But also then, I mean, if digital literacy is low, then fluency will be low. The ability to leverage the digital technologies in a confident, ethical, and effective manner. So we then figure out that it's low. So then these are things, by the way, that drives the book. Why come up with the concept of that book and put these experts together? Say, okay, we've studied the literature, so we've studied what's going on internationally, so then we see in the education, training, and development sector, and what's going on in other sectors of the economy. So then, in response now to what we figured out, then I say, okay, then let's set up the centers of excellence. So these centers of excellence are as a result of the presidential commission on the fourth industrial revolution. So when one of the recommendations had been that there ought to be the Artificial Intelligence Institute in South Africa, but also that Artificial Intelligence Institute must be housed in the higher education sector, but with all these sectors, public and private, participating. So we set up the centers of excellence in various, of course, these things need massive endowment, so you can only set them up. So then in limited places. So we set them up in 10 TVET colleges. So then Umgungundlovu in KwaZulu-Natal, Ikhala, in the Eastern Cape, Vembe, in Limpopo, Ehlanzeni in Mpumalanga. So then West Coast, Lipalale, in Northern Cape, Urban, in our Northern Cape province, and West Coast, in our Western Cape province. So then I'm going to show you what has happened since then. So using the case of Vembe, TVET College. So we source the funds, and the DHEAD comes in with an endowment of about 10 million rand. So to set up this 4IR lab at Vembe TVET College. So when we kind of conceptualized it, so we're trying to figure out, so if you were to put some of these 4IR labs in rural towns in South Africa, will you have electricity, internet, etc., etc.? So then we were facing a lot of challenges, but we set it up in Vembe. So then I highlight Vembe because it is one of those successful 4IR labs. They've gone on to work with HP and and other private companies to raise funding. But we've subsequently raised additional funding for Vembe from the European Commission, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So if you look at what is inside that Vembe, for instance, so you can see, interestingly, so it was students that were showing me how these machines work. They tell me, you only know some of these things in theory. So this is how it works. They kind of explain to me, so then you can see your drones. So in some of the pictures, some of the technologies that are used for water, then the coding machines. So if you go to the slide, for instance, you can see on the other side how that lab looks like. So this is digital transformation. So you can see what they use for cybersecurity. And then, of course, our TVET colleges deals a lot with artisans. So then on the right-hand side, you can see the welding simulator. So you're beginning to simulate. So I spoke about the virtual reality and AR. So then you can see some of these technologies being embedded in a rural, TVET college. So then just put some of the pictures so you can see the older 3D printers and the newer 3D printers. So that we don't talk about these things in theory, so then students can use some of this, but also what is happening in that rural communities, that community can book a slot and go in there and use some of these technologies. Then from the finance side, Facita has also come in handy and then sponsored this finance lab. So interesting developments that are taking place. So then, just as a case study, what we see the private-public partnerships. We see entrepreneurs going inside the TVET colleges, not paying anything, just booking, using the internet from the TVET college to do whatever they need to do. If they have to print 3D, they go there and print. So there is a societal contribution, but also then a bit of internationalization. So as more global organizations come through to Vembe and then look at what is happening. Then last year we apply because we had studied Vembe, but also then we had studied some of the TVET colleges that had not received that funding, but we had data to say this thing is an issue. The digitization, the fluency is an issue, the literacy is an issue. So we apply, we get the 400,000 euros from the EU fund, and then of course working with partners. So the project, just trying to support the TVET colleges, so to use technology better, so that literacy aspect of things, but then also just trying to move towards that fluency part, how to use these digital technologies smartly and ethically, and in teaching, or as they kind of put together their learning material. So then of course it's a combination of universities in South Africa, which is us, UJ, in Italy, and then in Greece. So then would be, of course, running classes on basic digital skills, which will happen in one of our TVET colleges, Majuba, in KwaZulu-Natal, in July. And then we'll also teach them how to assess and use the digital sources and how to create the digital sources for teaching and learning. So then in the end, we want to create a database for business, science lecturers and economics, so that they can kind of use these technologies for that purpose. Then these are just the partners in this project. So, Doc, I'm now moving to this book, which most colleagues have been waiting for. So the book was published in February. So it has 11 chapters. So, of course, so then with these various experiences, so I then think, okay, who can do what? I'm interested in knowing what is happening in the corporate reputation. I'm interested in knowing what is happening in auditing, in corporate reporting, so in banking and finance, even in rural communities. So I was just interested in kind of knowing. So chapter 2 is my main interest, so research interest, which is risk management. So that was done by myself and Dr. Senyo, where we looked at the digital transformation in the enterprise risk management process. So I'll then tell you where this thing fits in. So in my view, in terms of that triangle that I showed earlier, then 3 and 8, chapter 3 and 8 was done by Dr. Oladele and Dr. Mudiha. They kind of looked at the digital transformation in finance and the banking sector. So this was more interesting. So if you look at the finance and the banking sector, that they are not identifying problems. Their interest is on taking opportunities. So if you look at chapter 4, it's more problems. How can we use digital transformation in areas that are administered by traditional authorities? So like if you come from rural areas like me, you stay in an area that is administered by traditional authorities, so you would know The documents get lost. Everything is manual, etc., etc. So how can we use digital transformation? So how can we embed these digital technologies in such, in such processes? Try to make sure that the lives of the people get better. Chapter 5 was again so more of an improvement process after looking at the problems that finance teams would typically experience. That was done by Dr. Nzama and Prof. Cesar. Then chapter 6 was done by Dr. Lindy Khribi, then who's facilitating this session today. So then her interest, of course, is the corporate reporting processes. So then chapter 7 was more on the marketing environment. So I thought this was, sitting in two areas, then taking advantage of the situation, but just also trying to be aspirational, but I'll show you the slides on that. And then in the auditing environment, that chapter was done by Dr. Denerwe. And then the corporate reporting was done by Prof. Adelo Tan. And then of interest, by the way, so I was reading another report. They say most bigger organizations, they hardly get hit by cyber criminals. It's actually small businesses that suffer. And then when they suffer massive losses. That chapter was kind of crucial to give me an idea of what's happening in that particular space. So my views now, so just before I close, Dr. Khribi, so from the perspective of an editor, so I put that triangle that had aspirations, problem, and opportunity. I thought your chapter on corporate reporting was more of the aspirations. How can organizations aspire to use digital technologies for a better corporate reputation? So then how can organizations use digital technologies or transform digitally for a better enterprise risk management, for better corporate reporting, for better audits? Then I thought the chapter on small businesses was responding to problems. So to say, how can, digital technologies used so in cyber defenses for small businesses so that they cannot suffer or be exposed? So in areas under traditional authorities, I thought again, so it was try and solve the problem of manual processes that we kind of see there. And then the chapter on on finance process improvements, again, so I thought when I reviewed it, from the perspective of an editor, it was geared into solving the problems that they saw. So as I said, so the chapter on marketing, banking, and finance, always marketers, they take the opportunity. So I thought it was geared towards taking opportunities that organizations would have seen. So then, from these digital technologies, or when they digitally transform, similarly on the banking and finance, the new products, the defenses, etc., etc. So I thought it was more on the opportunity side of things. So I'm closing docs. So then other work what I've done, so in and around the digital technologies and digital transformation, so is of course that book. But of course, there is another one that's so I'm just getting there. So I'm getting slower now, but I'm getting there. So then maybe you'll invite me. So then next time. So it's that book, Digital Transformation in South Africa. But of course, so we've tried to determine how can one work towards digitally transforming accounting and business processes. But I've also tried to think, if you were to manage risks at an enterprise level in the fourth industrial revolution or in the period that's characterized by advances in technology, how would you do it? How does it look like? So if you don't do it, what's likely going to happen to you? So then, in another book, Artificial Intelligence, Economics and Finance Theories, trying to figure out that can we really teach if you thought of the Laffer curve, can we really teach the Laffer curve the way we had taught it in the past? So then I don't think so. So if you think of that whole theory of adverse selection and then moral hazard. So then without technology, can we really teach that theory without artificial intelligence? If we taught it with artificial intelligence, how does it look like? What does it mean? What changes? So what remains the same? So is the agency theory still the agency theory in the context of artificial intelligence? So in the book, Artificial Intelligence and the Changing Nature of Corporations, we kind of are dreaming in that book. So we dream of this organization that applies artificial intelligence. So in its strategy and operations. So in the strategy setting, in the strategy making. So how would that look like? How would that change the organization? So and then we kind of compare organizations that would use the big data, use the machine learning algorithms, and use some of these technologies in setting up their strategy. We compare them with those that do not. And of course, the answer is moral hazard. So then, as they always say, so then in risk assurance and governance, this is the work that we've kind of been doing. So which I think of interest was, the one that I did with Prof. Ben Marks on dynamic auditing. So then I kind of did the auditing in the fourth industrial revolution, those chapters. How do you conduct the audits in the fourth industrial revolution? So then, of course, it's kind of dreaming of some of these things. So it would look like this, it would look like that. So it would have this code, it won't have those components, etc. So that's the contributions that we've done. These are my references, Doc. Thank you so much. And then it's been great talking to you.
You, Prof. Malloy. Wow, fantastic. And I wish we had the entire day because there's so much to discuss. And I will definitely have to have you back here if you would. Because there's just, like you say, and we see it over and over, digital transformation affects every part of our lives. And what I appreciate what you showed here today is that it affects every aspect of a developing economy as well. I love how you shared the happy story of the centers of excellence that you're working on in South Africa, in the areas where upliftment is definitely necessary, where skills is necessary. So fantastic. Thank you for that. It's excellent. To our attendees, please see also in the chat, Carolyn shared the link to Prof. Malloy's book with the case studies, and this case study so beautifully shows the reality. Like you said, some focus so much on the challenges and the risks, and the others on the opportunities or the responsibilities, etc. I think from the Good Governance Academy side, we're very much concerned with the governance side of things, and definitely a digital transformation changes the way we govern as well, and the guidelines, not only the compliance on corporate governance. So that's absolutely fantastic. I have so many questions, but I think first of all, let's look at the questions that our audience posted in our chat, but then also in the Q&A. So if it's okay with you, Prof. Malloy, I'll ask those questions. And the first one that I saw here is from Chris Bragg. Chris, it's lovely to see you on the in the event as well. And he said, what about renewable energy technical and business skills? I think once, like we said, digital transformation with the AI and the fourth industrial and fifth changes everything. So in your opinion, what are your thoughts on the renewable energy and the digital aspects of that?
Renewable energy is the future. So then that's my opinion to start with. So that's the future, given the ESGs, and also then given the sustainable development goals. So then we do not want to emit, or we want to reduce the emissions. So the SDGs talks to that: life on the earth, life in water, etc. Et so I think renewable energy is the future. So indeed, so then renewable energies should be studied, and the role of digital transformation in renewable energy, and the skills, therefore, that one should consider. but important area given where we're going and given what we see from the global perspectives.
Absolutely. We can't deny it, and it's part of our everyday and our future. And I think these principles and guidelines must also be implemented in our skills transfer and the training that we do also at these, for example, centers of excellence or even big corporates in their transformation. Okay, so I'm looking at our Q&A sheet page. Someone says, "Hi, Prof. One of the mines in South Africa has undergone the digital transformation and also automating most of their key processes. Do we know which industries are undergoing a digital transformation? What about the financial services?" So you are a mining expert. I'm a little bit of a mining scholar. What are your thoughts on the mining setting the trend and the other industries following? Or is that not the case? The African, the SADC countries, are very much mining economy driven. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, you're correct. I was actually interacting with someone at Transnet. So that's just how pervasive this thing is. I was interacting with someone at Transnet and they say, "Hey, we want you to come and help us with digital transformation." So I say, "All right, let's look at the structure. Let's look at what you have in." So then Transnet moves our goods. So then, and of course, people. And then I had a chat with someone inside the National Empowerment Fund. So these, by the way, are examples of what people are thinking. So you have a company that's moving the goods, etc. So I had a chat with someone at National Empowerment Fund, and they say, "Come and look at how we can digitally transform our credit risk processes." So I go there, I look at all these numbers, then I think, this is too much for me. I'm too old. But this is just the thinking. So out there. Then last year I took my MBA students to SAP and FNB and Google just to go and look at the data centers out there. So and of course, so if you come to UJ, we'll show you the UJ Resolution Center. So, and then if you go to these TVET colleges, then you'll see what I kind of showed you. So essentially, what is happening is that each and every sector or subsector of the economy, there is digital transformation that is taking place there. But is that enough? Can that be scaled, et cetera, et cetera? I think that's where the problems are. So then in private companies, I'm seeing, and these big state-owned entities, I'm seeing a lot of digital transformation, a lot of adoption of digital technologies there. But in small businesses, we have the center at UJ, the Center for Entrepreneurship also, then there is a big challenge there. Just the use of Excel, just the use of an email is difficult. A lot of work needs to go in there. So if you go, as we showed with that study, in traditional authorities, so which they kind of operate, so in local and district municipalities, then you see challenges when it comes to the adoption of digital technologies. So we do know that in each and every sector there is or there are pockets of excellence, but we also do know that that's not enough. A lot needs to be done, particularly as companies begin to procure these technologies and see value in applying them. So when you kind of put emphasis on some of these things, you begin to think about the skills, you begin to think about training, and so forth and so forth. So that's where I'll drop it.
Absolutely, and these are very important points because if you think the SMMEs are the backbone of our economy, so it's so important that the skills get transferred and that the gap between those who can and can't and have and don't get bigger. So very important point. Thank you. And I think it is highlighted again with the next comment rather in our Q&A block. Mduduzi, yes, says, Prof, the 4IR centers are the future in our country. Can you consider similar TVETs in the rural areas such as Umsinga and Greytown, etc. in KZN? So once again, the need is there. And Carolyn, you made an excellent comment to say, thank you, Sue, what you're showing us is the democratizing of digital transformation. Absolutely. So, Nduduzi, I think Prof. Maloya showed us, he shared very happy news um, on this voting day with us. But, we all need to take the lead, and we all need to spread the knowledge and spread democracy, those who believe in it in our country, to make sure that no one's left behind.
No,
Okay.
no, you're correct. Maybe just to add, Doc, on that. In fact, so you see, Umzinya Timdu is actually next to my district in KwaZulu-Natal. But what I wanted to say is that there is work that is, since we started the work with those 10 TVET colleges, there is work that is taking place. Let me give you an example. In KwaZulu-Natal, in a small place called Babanango, Theatre inaugurated with the Minister of Education the largest smart skills center. That's in the rural, deep KwaZulu-Natal. So when I pass by and I go to Durban, I pass by Babanango, then Nkandla, all the way to Durban. So then they kind of put together the largest, smart skills center. So there is work that is kind of taking place. But as the doctor was saying, trying to democratize digital transformation and access. You can only democratize it by, making sure that people have access to these technologies, access, to the skills, et cetera, et cetera. And the same thing, by the way, so in the Western Cape, Theatre has another skills center. So then where they've put in the 3D printers, and all these technologies. So just trying to make sure that the rural communities also have access to some of these technologies, Doc. So that's what I can say. Thanks on the point.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And linking to that thing, Bongani asks, how can digital transformation impact businesses in South Africa? How can and taking more social view is, how can South African businesses balance digital transformation with the need to address pressing social and economic challenges? And then just briefly, this then connects with a comment from Ayanda in the chat that says, where do you see the future of jobs? Especially, she refers specifically to accounting, auditing, but I think in business in general. So in a country with and developing economies in general, where you often see unemployment, are we going to lose jobs? And how do we balance our digital transformation with our social priorities? That's a tough question.
Yes, I know it's a difficult thing to say, but we are going to lose some of the activities that are done by human beings. So whether we lose jobs, it's another story. That job will still be done by a machine, but so who's doing it would probably now change. I suppose now the question is the extent of the job losses. So I was reading another article yesterday. Should now machines pay tax because we're all gonna be unemployed? So then, and then we can all get the stipend of some sort, or the social security. But let me put it this way: in the first industrial revolution, there was a little bit of an introduction of the machinery. So I want you to imagine our ancestors in the first industrial revolution. They were kind of plowing the fields. And then to plow a field that is, let's say, maybe 2 hectares, how many of them would be there? And then there was an introduction of a tractor. A tractor could plow that field in what, maybe a day or half a day or so, then the work that would have taken people a long time. Of course, there were losses, there were job losses, but of course, there were jobs that were created. Someone that would have need to drive a tractor would not have been a skill. So, but with the introduction of a tractor, then, you needed someone to drive that tractor. You needed someone to service that tractor. If it got damaged, you needed someone to fix that tractor. Oh, maybe another thing. So you needed someone to build a road so that the tractor could travel. You needed someone to do the tires, etc., etc. So you've got to think about this thing and then try to project to say, what are the skills given these changes that we would need, and then invest in those skills. I read, for instance, from history that there was an outcry in the second industrial revolution when there was electricity, because people were sewing like do. And now you have this sewing machine that goes fast, and then people can work day and night. In fact, I was listening to something else. Maybe I'm digressing, not getting too old. So listening to something else to say the 8 to 5 job came because we didn't have electricity. So it kind of, the sun will set earlier and people have to go. Now we have electricity. Imagine massive production, because you can have these machines connected to the electricity, massive production. So opening up other industries, etc. So I want to think of it as, of course, we're going to lose some of these things. But I think, so if we invest and we think and we plan our economy the way we should, so we can have a different story. So we are already sitting at what, 32%, 31, 32% unemployment. So I mean, unheard of in any emerging economy. So then even the economies that are not where we are, just unheard of. So we've got to plan this economy better, plan so the skills that we would need, plan the industries, so then give support, enabling environment, etc., etc. So then I think the beginning is some of these smart centers, smart skills centers that you see in rural townships and townships, etc., etc. So I hope I've answered you using
Yeah,
history.
absolutely interesting views, and we're quite optimistic. I think this reminds me of a scene from the fictional series Downtown Abbey, where the older generation did not want to use electricity because they fear it. And perhaps, although there are risks, and like you mentioned, cybersecurity is really very important and a huge risk, but there are so many opportunities as well that we should be positive and optimistic about, and not miss the chance to plan and use the digital transformation to perhaps address our social challenges that we have, and maybe even create jobs through that, like you say. And linking to that is a comment by Damien in our Q&A, where he says, you mentioned that after training comes changing the mindset. I would suggest an open mind comes before the training. And I think that's perhaps what you anyway see in hopefully the culture of emerging economies in those peoples. You spoke about disruptive cultures. We might be disruptive societies, because emerging economies are growing, they're changing, they're young societies, people keen to embark and change their lives. So hopefully we can associate open-mindedness with emerging economies, those societies, and move forward to ensure that we don't only see the risks, but see how we can improve our lives. Now, on that, the next question, it was in the chat, but it relates to how can digital transformation improve our service delivery and, public service. What have you found in your research in terms of public sectors, not only education but otherwise? Are we open for change? Are we adopting these? What did you find in terms of skills levels and also infrastructure?
Yeah, infrastructure and skills are a big issue. And then if you don't have those, or if you are lacking on those, then you are going to have a problem. So in the public service, digital technology is an issue. But I do know that there is a report. And let me start backward. There is work that we're doing in the National School of Government. So the work that we do in the National School of Government, we train ministers and deputy ministers, as well as DGs and accounting officers on digital transformation. So when we train them using case studies. So I think I have case studies of 180 countries on how they've used digital transformation to change the lives of the people. One of the examples, for instance, that we use is that of Rwanda. So we kind of show how, Rwanda has digitized the entire process of getting an ID and a passport and so on and so on. So, and then the services afterwards, if you wanted to apply for so for the passport or so, then how that has been digitalized. But additionally, so we show in Rwanda how drones are used. Rwanda is a very small country. So how drones are used to transport medication. So we decide not to use theory when we speak to public officials, but to use case studies and examples of small countries like Uganda, like Kenya, like Rwanda, like Mauritius, like Botswana, and Namibia. So I know Namibia because I was part of the Fourth Industrial Revolution Task Force team that we tried to put together the 4IR and the opportunities. But let me just come back to this point. So then there is work that we're doing at that National School of Government to, use these case studies and show the benefits that have been derived by the communities from the use of digital technologies. And then, you have these discussions on how the thing can be done in the South African context, in municipalities and traditional areas. But of course, infrastructure and skills remains the point of concern. So it remains, part of the work that needs to be done. But that's why, for instance, if you have someone getting appointed in the public service, they are encouraged, or one of the requirements now is that, particularly at the senior level, is that they need to attend certain courses from the National School of Government. I just hope that in future they make digital transformation part and parcel of those courses, so that we can show so how other countries have used some of these technologies for service delivery. Just last that I remember is which was of interest to me because I'm a long distance run junkie, was how in Singapore, but of course Singapore is a bad example. It's an advanced country, but how Singapore is using technology. So if you wanted to go to the gym or so, then once you are in a bus, you can be able to see that, oh, this gym is now empty, and you are able to go there. And how a country such as Malaysia is using digital transformation in education. So then, we use those examples to show authorities and officials that it is possible. Other countries are doing it, and there are ways of doing it.
Absolutely, and I think the digital transformation and age make it possible for us to also easily share knowledge and best practices so we can learn and catch up. Prof. Malloy, our time is up, and it's absolutely a pleasure and a privilege to have you as our guest today. Thank you so much. I recognize so many names of our attendees, and I'm sure together with me, we're all fans of you. So it was lovely. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing, and we'll definitely have to revisit some of these case studies to learn more from them. Over to
Thank you
you,
so much.
Carolyn.
Thank you
Yes.
so much, Lindy. Thank you, Prof. Malloy. Lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for a very entertaining and insightful and informative webinar. We really are appreciative. I see lots of comments, and I really thank you for participating in this webinar series. It'd be lovely to meet you in person one day, but thank you very much for your good work. It's really appreciated. Thanks very much, everyone, for staying online. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.